Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 8th International Congress of Genç Ekonomistler. I'm Yasin Tosun from Üniversite Zigen, and I will be moderating this session on the last day of the Congress. Our guest speaker in these sessions will be Assistant Professor Pınar Tat from Gebze Technical University, Turkey, and she will be presenting her article, The Determinants of the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Intensity in Global Value Chains. So I'd like to briefly provide some information about the sessions. In these sessions, we will ask our guests 10 questions and learn about the main points of the article. Each question will have 100 seconds are finished response times. After the questions are finished, we will ask our guests any questions you may have. So we will start, and now we begin. First of all, I want to say thank you, Professor, again, your participations. And if you want to say opening sessions, please say to your turn.
Yeah, thank you to Yasin. Hi, Yasin. Again, hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me and your brief introduction. Actually, I want to thank you and your team again because you are just bringing all the academicians from all over the world through the years. And this year, this concept is very fresh and eye-catching, I think. I hope, I believe that actually the sessions of the conference will, they open the eyes of the students, especially grad and undergrad students who wants to pursue their academic career. I hope our session also provides some, the information to just open their horizon and understand their interest areas.
Okay. If you're ready, we will start off with the first questions.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay, the first question is and yes. First of all, how does this study differ methodologically from peer works on GVS emissions? So second part in this question, does it offer a new analytical mechanism or extend the existing approaches? So first of all, you're answering, I want to share your presentations.
Yeah, the presentation is easiest way to convey the message to students, I think. Maybe we can directly move on to the contribution part. Actually, the question asks mainly the novelty of the study. Actually, our motivation is driven by the lack of something in the literature. When we review the literature, we notice that there is lots of, descriptive studies regarding the concept, but unfortunately, there is a limited number of empirical studies, as you can see. And these studies mainly focus on the carbon dioxide for just some specific countries, some specific sectors. And these countries, as you imagine, these are just developed countries because the data limitation is not valid, is not issue for them, but developing countries are not taking much consideration regarding these issues. And also when we look at the sectors, we notice that they're always dealing with the manufacturing industries. It is understandable to some extent because manufacturing sectors are just located in the middle of the global production network. But still, we just want to look at the whole countries and the whole sectors as much as possible. And the first thing is that the carbon dioxide emission actually is, you can say that is enough because it's already nearly 75% of total greenhouse gas emission. But still, it is not enough. We should look at all other gases embedded in greenhouse gas emission. That's why we just focus on the greenhouse gas emission by considering the whole countries as much as possible. And third one, we just trace and calculate emission embedded in both backward linkages as well as forward linkages. Emission embedded in backward linkages mainly coming from domestic buyings, or coming from international markets, imports mainly, and also the emission embedded in the forward linkages, as well as the emission embedded in domestic sales and the forward linkages, mainly export. But the studies in the literature just look at the unilateral, just look at the forward linkages by using the unilateral data sets. Thanks to our large database provided by the EORA, we are able to look at the both backward and forward linkages. This is an important, the initiation and step, I think. And the last one is the studies generally use the some input-output calculations, but not the newest one. We calculate the emission embedded in these international trade flows by using the methodology provided by Wang and his friends. This methodology is really nice in order to understand the details of the emission embedded in each and every part, domestic sales, embedded in inputs, embedded in final demands. That's why our analysis, I think, provides some important, important new knowledge into the literature. And let's say one explanation. In our studies, actually, this study will be, I'm just presented in the 2021 annual conference of the Economic Research Forum, and won the Best Paper Award. And then we luckily published this paper in the International Economic Journal. So I believe that there is an important, contribution that brings to that paper.
Yeah. We will pass the second questions. Given that EORA 28 data end in the 2015, do the findings remain valid for today's post-pandemic trade and the production dynamics?
Yeah, actually, it's a really nice question because when we did our analysis, the EORA database was up until that period, 2015. Now they are available up until 2016, but luckily, as a Gebze Technical University, we are one of the research universities in Turkey, and they provide huge amount of budget to sustain the scientific research project. And now we are able to access all of the years up until 2023. So in our new research project, in our new article, we just try to understand whether the consumption-based emission is just different from the production-based emission. Actually, this article now currently we are seeing in the screen, just the initial step, who is responsible? Our main question was who is responsible, developed or developing countries. But in the second step, now we are currently playing again with the input-output tables and try to understand whether there is a difference between the consumption-based emission and the production-based emission. What I'm saying, what I'm meaning by saying the consumption-based emission, actually we include again the emission embedded in international trade by again looking at the two different perspectives, backwards and forwards. Now we just calculate emission embedded in domestic buyings as well as emission embedded in imports, and then we call it consumption-based emission. At the other, at the other side, we again calculate the emission embedded in domestic sales as well as emission embedded in export and call it production-based emission. Taking the difference, taking first natural logarithm and taking first just the difference, and then as a second, the variable, just taking the ratio of these two, consumption-based emission divided by production-based emission, we try to understand whether a specific country or sector is net emission importer or exporter. This, I think, fulfill the missing part of this paper. As far as we know, depending on the preliminary analysis, yes, this is the main results, even after post-pandemic shocks and even after changes in the traditional trade policies, more conservative trade policies now we are seeing. The results is pretty much valid.
The third question is this. The paper examines both backward and the forward linkage. Are there differences in environmental responsibility empirically strong and clearly explained?
Yeah, actually, let's look at the, first of all, this graph. I really love this graph because our main aim in this paper, is just to look at the both backward and forward linkages to understand who is responsible. As you can see from the thickness and the direction of the red arrows, the emission intensity embedded in export of lower middle, upper middle, and the low income countries to high income countries are much more higher than the emissions embedded in any other trade flows, as you can see from the narrower arrows. And actually, this answer our question. Mainly these developing countries producing, exporting, but for what? For the demands of high-income countries. This is explained by using the network diagrams, network graphs. But as you said, the determinants of these drivers, determinants of the consumption-based emission and the production-based emission is actually another concept, another research question, and even another paper. Because now in the empirical model, we just use the bilateral framework and look at the emission embedded in international trade by just looking at the forward linkages. Regardless of the forward linkages and backward linkages, this just gives the the drivers of the emission embedded in international trade, because we are observing country, partner country. If we switch them, partner country and the country, just look at the backward linkages, the results gives the same thing. And our results just, we are looking at the emission embedded in export. This is much more driven by the production. Therefore, the characteristic of home countries, the main country, are much more important, are much more their size, the coefficient, and the significances are much more important for that kind of emission. And unfortunately, we cannot see the demand side, the consumption-based side properly. As I said before, this is the not aim of this article. This is another question and answer, which we are trying to answer in our current analysis.
The next question is that do the positive effects of the capital intensity and negative role of the renewables vary significantly across sectors like manufacturing and the services?
Let's move on to the latest slide, because we try to understand the heterogeneity across our sample in terms of countries, in terms of sectors, as much as possible. We divide developed and countries into two, as developed and developing, by using the income level of the initial year of the time period, which is 1990s. And then we just try to understand whether the effect is valid across all sectors by dividing these sectors not as an aggregate way into 3 but 6, because we know that electricity, gas, and water is one of the much more problematic area when we consider the emission intensity. And even the electricity itself is one of the eye-catching sectors. These are just one of the CBAM sectors, carbon border adjustment mechanisms, just focus on some specific sectors, and the electricity is one of them. Therefore, we split our sectors as much as possible. And as you can see, when we return the question, when we look at the renewable energy part, again, as I said before, the partner characteristics are not important, but the renewable energy is negatively correlated with the emission intensity embedded in global value chains, embedded in forward linkages, regardless of the sectors. As you can see, the negative and the significant negativeness and the significances continue through the all sectors. But when we look at the capital stock intensity, we see that there is a positive correlation between the capital stock and the emission intensity across all sectors except agriculture and fishing. Yeah, to some extent, this can be understandable, but to some extent, we just expect that the capital stock represents actually is a good proxy for the technology. And if the technology is higher, probably you use less energy, you reveal less emission to the air and environment. But apparently this is not the case. There is a positive correlation between them. Apparently this technology is not helping. But when we look at agriculture and fishing, these, the different results compared to other sectors, we just noticed that by, separating the sample, but just looking at the agriculture and fishing sector. These table represent the results for these specific sectors by dividing the countries as developed and developing. The first one represents the exporter countries, development position. The second one represents the importer countries. And as you can see, actually the main result is driven by the developing countries, not the developed ones. I know there are lots of results, but it is really important and nice to understand the reason behind them. As far as we discussed, actually we thought that the agriculture and fishing production system and the procedures are much more basic compared to developed countries, much more labor intensive, and these labor intensiveness may lead to results. This specific production pattern may lead to results, the exceptional results, right?
Okay, next question. The paper supports the EKS hypothesis. So are the observed patterns causal or merely correlational? And how are the structural drivers addressed?
Yeah. Environmental Kuznets. We are talking about the environmental Kuznets curve. For those who are not, familiar with the concept, actually, this just relates to GDP per capita, as we did with the emission intensity. And the saying is that the GDP per capita just increases the emission up to some level. But then the emission per capita or just the emission intensity will eventually decrease because people are now demanding more environmental friendly production system and products in their daily life. This is, the really good explanation and really well-grounded model. Actually, we also try to understand our empirical question within a gravity-like framework. Therefore, we can interpret our results in a causal framework. But as I said before, a couple of minutes ago, I always say that the correlated, associated. Therefore, we should be very careful about of this, and I feel really comfortable when I'm saying correlated and the associated like that, because the endogeneity is the biggest concern, as you mentioned in your question. Endogeneity comes from two reasons. The one of them is the simultaneity issue, and the second one of them, the omitted variable bias. In our analysis, we just, since we are aware of this problem and the significance of this problem, we try to address this question by applying two things. The first thing, in order to get rid of the simultaneity bias, we just take the 1 or 2 year legs of the right-hand side variables. This is the best thing we can do, and our results are valid regardless of the type of specification. And second thing we want to emphasize is that we are talking about the omitted variable bias. We add many control variables, as you can see. And actually, the capital stock, renewable energy, these are just sector level varying variables. And we also control many country level variables. Actually, in the much more extended model, without getting any revision, we include value-added growth of the sectors and the financialization, the human capital. Financialization is important because the banking sector consumes lots of electricity, as we discussed before. This creates a huge problem related to emission. And again, the results are quite similar. And also one thing I want to emphasize, we also play with the dummies. We include country sector partner country interactions This is just a fixed effect, actually, two-way fixed effect indeed, since we are also controlling the time effects, time fixed effects, in order to control the technological change and any other things. I know this is just the 0-1 variables, do not show variation like the financialization, like the any other variables, but we thought that we do our best, and I think at the R-square, again, the students are very aware of that, explains the just the power of the model is relatively higher, enough high, so we thought that our analysis is maybe estimates can be interpreted in a also causal way, but we are always very careful because we couldn't find any suitable instrumental variable for all of these variables. The two-way fixed effect is the best and most secure method to estimate this kind of model.
Okay, we will finish the half of the questions, and so we will start the second part. And so this part is continuing to general framework of these articles. And the second question is how do FTAs and the GATT membership reduce emissions? So it's means directly through rules or indirectly via trade volume and the technology transfers.
Actually, the FTI and the free trade agreement and the membership of general agreements, tariffs and trade institution, giving the umbrella of that kind of institutions could be related to the rules and the regulations, because when we even think the non-tariff measures like the sanitary or phytosanitary measures or non-technical barriers in order to just, increase the quality of product, or just to be sure about the quality of product, especially coming from, the African continent to the European market, we see that there are some, the importance of that kind of rules and regulations. And we thought that, again, by looking at the counter differentiation, when we look at the free trade agreement rules, as you can see, the free trade agreement has negative influence, let's say, on the emission through only the developing countries. And if these developing countries trade with the developing countries, I think it's reflects also the competition among them. And we thought that the effect is generally driven by the rules and regulation rather than trade volumes. If it's is related to trade volumes, we should also observe the same negativeness maybe for the developed countries. Therefore, the meaning is again unveiled in the sample. That's why we just try to understand by separating our sample as much as possible.
We'll continue with other questions. With the only 26 sectors in the ERA, 26 data set called sectoral aggregation bias emissions intense results, especially for developing economies.
Yeah, you are right. The only 26 sectors, right? But we have 186 countries. This is huge. This nearly approaches the whole number of countries in the world. And actually, I'm using the ERA 26. Also, there is another version of the ERA for the researchers who are interested in full ERA. And in full ERA, we can observe more detailed sectors for some countries, especially for approximately 60 countries. We can observe more than 100 sectors. For Turkey, especially, it is also open and valid. And actually, when we just, try to understand the details of the sectors, probably in developing countries, these sectors create higher emission. and maybe participate more or less, right? But can create higher emission because developing countries attracting some foreign direct investment and the activities of multinationals just because their low standards of environments, rules and regulation, and also as well as the lower cost of production, right? Therefore, probably aggregating them into the 26 to a lower number probably just windsorize curb the extreme values and make our estimates as underestimated. If we can observe more variation across the sectors within one country, probably we can get much more valid and stronger results in terms of coefficients. We thought that our estimates not overestimated, but probably underestimated by using these aggregation methodology of EORA.
Okay, so this question is the this question is the last question of the general information of these articles parts. So the gravity-based models omits environmental regulation variables. Could this omission bias the estimation of emission determinants?
Yeah, the environmental regulations is again important, and it's really tough to find the every regulations for each country in each sectors. That's why we try to include the free trade agreement, the GATT, and to represent the regulations and the rules as much as possible. And actually, the OECD database just provide the environmental tax information. We just wanted to include these variables, but unfortunately, again, OECD provides the information only for approximately 60 countries. And if I continue with the OECD variables and the environmental tax, I lose nearly 2/3 of the information, 2/3 of the countries. This is huge, and we did not want to do that and include the other variables that may proxy for the rules and regulation.
Okay.
The omitted variables, as we discussed, I think.
Okay. I understand. So we will start off the discussion part of these articles. So these questions is a little bit hard, little bit includes the discussion of the articles. Please don't understand anything. We are just discuss of the what's happening, what's we improving of this area. Yeah. So the first question is the developed countries outsource emissions to developing nations. Could adopting a shared responsibility framework reshape these interpretations?
Yeah, this is the main conclusion of the article. I really love to emphasize these, the sentences. Developed countries outsource emissions to developing countries, as we see in the network diagrams. And actually, our main aim is to understand this situation, whether it is valid or not. And the second aim is to provide some policy recommendation, as we see in the literature, as we see in the, for instance, Jacob's article. They also just provide some policy recommendations regarding the responsible sharing between the consumers and producers. But I think in our article, we are in this article, we are at the initial step. In the second step, maybe we can say more sharing scenarios, sharing possibilities by looking at the both consumption-based and the production-based emission. As I said before in our current analysis. And the third one could be the composition of the economic benefits of this production from the environmental detrimental impacts of these production, because firms are just getting profits by producing, by exporting, and the countries just increase their GDPs as a result of these environmentally detrimental activities. Therefore, we should separate the benefits and costs, and then we can propose some scenario-based policy recommendations.
Okay. We will pass to these questions. And the last question of the sessions. If the green protectionism rises, especially European Union carbon border tax, and would certain conclusions about the trade liberalization's positive environmental role still hold?
Yeah, as I said before, we have seen lots of the trade policy changes currently in the name of green protectionism or in the name of environmental friendly production and the production networks. And actually, I always believe that this is just unveils the real aim of the developed countries. As I said before, CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanisms applied by the EU countries, and the United States carbon border tax or any other tariffs, especially applied on the China. I think the main reason and the main motivation is just recall their foreign direct investment, their multinational enterprises into their home countries, into the EU, into the USA, because they are facing, the decrease in the GDP per capita, or some firms just shutting down. The people are just jobless in some specific sectors who just compete with the Chinese products. Therefore, these policies are important and apparently can shape the production, global production and trade structure. But I believe that, as I said before, the trade structure and the production structure probably will not change at a one day. And we see that all the established trade rules, maybe adding new trade rules, maybe adding new trading partners, diversifying these trading partners could be a solution to these extra protectionism. But I thought that the new trade rules evolve, the new partnerships has evolved, and eventually we again see that the emissions could be also related to transportation as well as international trade. We just omit the transportation because it is really tough to allocate the transportation. At least international trade, it is easier to track these emission embedded in international trade. Therefore, I thought in this way, and by just showing these graphs, I just want to emphasize that approximately 85% of the emissions are just resulted from these just 6-7 countries. The one or two countries from each continent, each production hub, each production center. As you can see, other countries are mainly developing countries, which we can easily absorb in our databases. Maybe the policies just focusing on that countries, not every countries, not every provinces of the every region of the countries would be quite, efficient and beneficial for both countries. The growth perspective as well as the environmental concerns of the globe.
Okay, we will finish all of the questions.
Yeah, nice.
Get this.
Any other questions?
No.
Maybe, all right. Okay.
No, all of the questions is finished. Okay. So yes, today on the last day of the Congress, we were with Assistant Professor Pınar Tat from the Gebze Technical University. We read the article, The Determinants of the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Intensity in the Global Value Chains. We are using the 10 questions. Thank you again for your participations and the contributions. And if you want to say anything ending after this session, please, I'm waiting to you.
Thank you to Yasin again for your all great efforts of you and your team. Again, you are doing great things. I think this online platform will be very beneficial for all students. And see you until next time, next year.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, that concludes the sessions. Until next time, stay tuned.